especially if what you're going to do is going to serve those two pinnacle needs: to reach one's full potential, to have the opportunity to see how great one could be, and to serve something greater than oneself. If what you're going to pursue is going to achieve those two things, it's seriously worth thinking deeply about. So it's like, I don't want to play that event because I might not be good enough. It's like, you should go play that event and see how good you really are. And maybe under the pressure or the urgency of that event, you may rise to be more than you actually could. What happens to people when they put themselves in environments that are seemingly beyond their limits is that it gives them the opportunity to grow. Even if you don't accomplish the goal, you have an unbelievable opportunity to grow. Owen, you ran a marathon, right? In over the course of over this past summer, didn't you? So you can understand the nerves that you felt going into it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on what we're discussing right now? As I know you've done some pretty incredible things, like 30-minute plank and marathon. You're a hyper athlete. I want to hear your thoughts on what we're talking about right now.
Well, with what we're talking about, I believe that when someone doesn't believe in you and they try to almost tell you to stop doing what you're doing and tries to hold you back, they really don't want to see you succeed in life, or not in life, but in what you're doing or what your goal is. And so it's really about, I think, who you try to associate yourself with, and like the people you want to be around in your life. And that's why a lot of people say pick your friends wisely, or choose your friends wisely, because you want to surround yourself with the people that are going to pull the best out of you.
Mm-hmm. And believe in your dreams. Sam Onett, who was a teammate at Indiana he became a really successful pro after his career, and he came on our virtual camps years ago, and he said just that. He said, when I came back to Montreal, he was from Montreal. He said, I stopped hanging out with a lot of people, and they asked me, why don't you hang out with us anymore? And he said, why would I hang out with you? You don't believe in my dreams. It's true. You really do want to be around people that will tell you you could be so much more. Because that would be the best form of encouragement for you to actually go and find that out. And it's true. This is the key thing to know. You have no understanding of how much more you could accomplish, how much more you are. You have no clue. We have no clue. You only find out when you're encouraged to find out, or you're under enough pressure to find out. But one of the greatest things you can ever experience in life is finding that out. It's the pinnacle of the hierarchy. Okay? Any final thoughts from you guys on this topic here, or should we move on to the next? Anybody have any thoughts, questions? Okay, we're good. Okay, so here's the next thing that I wanted to bring forward through today's session. for us all to think and talk about. Let's not use ourselves as an example, but you can see this in a lot of other people. When you watch them practice or train or compete, they get very frustrated by their problems. Now, their frustration of their problems is a problem in itself. Why is it a problem in itself? Because the frustration can, not always, but it can do enough damage to the point where you can't actually perform effectively if you can't let go of that frustration. And the reason I say that sometimes this is true is because, well, you could see examples of great athletes who got really frustrated. But the difference is in the time frame of frustration to solution. Like, the athletes that stay frustrated long enough for it to kind of what's the word? Sink into the next point, they're not the very successful ones. The successful ones who do get frustrated and get over it fast before it can affect the next point or the next play. But this is the other thing to understand, is that doesn't mean that you just have to not be frustrated at the start of the next point. Because there is a strategy process. So for example, in tennis, right, it's like you get 24 seconds in between points. Some great athletes will get frustrated when they lose, and that will be the end of the frustration. It's like the act of the frustration is the end of the frustration. Like, ugh. And then right away they're like, okay, here's what I got to do. Here's what I got to do. Is that ideal? No, it's not ideal, but that's why I said sometimes it can really hurt performance effectively. It's not ideal because you have somebody across from you that's seeing how vulnerable and you're humanizing yourself to them in a lot of ways. So that's why it's not ideal. But if you can get frustrated and immediately respond, it doesn't do... I'm sure, of course, it has a little impact. I mean, everything has a little impact, but maybe not enough to really, put you in a terrible position. But we can avoid this altogether. We can. So you see these athletes that get frustrated when they come to train, compete, right? It's like, well, let's talk about that. Let's uncover that a little bit. It's like, why are they getting frustrated? Because they're having problems. So they're frustrated by the fact that they have problems. Why are they frustrated by the fact that they have problems? Did they not expect to have problems? Should an elite performer trying to achieve really big or hard goals not expect to have problems? Because the frustration is coming from having problems. I'm asking you all, should an elite performer not expect to have problems? Does that sound ridiculous to anybody? That an elite performer would go into training or competition and not expect to have problems. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? So why do so many people do something that is just so ridiculous when you logically uncover it? Because Humans, they're humans. Humans are not always logical. In fact, they're highly emotional. So, how does understanding this intrinsic nature allow us to maybe counter that which we tend to do? Okay, so this goes again into uncovering the unconscious. Okay, so here's what we know, right? If you go to play a tennis match and I say to you, play. Okay, now, if you go play a tennis match and I say to you, play, but every time you hit a ball in the net, you give me 10 push-ups. Which one do you think would lead you to miss less in the net? Anybody? Go ahead, Cruz.
I think the second one, because if you tell them every time you miss in like the net you get 10 push-ups, they're gonna want to like lock in really and like not want to miss more. But the first one, it's like even if you miss in the net, they don't have to do anything.
Okay, so yeah, so they're focusing on basically avoiding the net, right? But they have a tendency, like they have a natural tendency to miss in the net. That's what's so interesting about it. So until you point it out, what is to point it out? To bring it to the conscious, until you point out to avoid the net, they tend to miss in the net. Okay, until you point out how ridiculous not expecting to have problems are as an elite performer, until you point that out, you're more likely to have a tendency to get frustrated by those problems. You're more likely to operate as if there shouldn't be any problems. So how do we counter our human nature in a way that serves us better? We bring it to light. That's what we're doing right now. So what I'm doing right now with you all is I'm trying to explain to you how we need to all be clear on the fact that as an elite performer, you may face nothing but problems. In fact, when you sign up to be elite, what you should try to look at it as is that I'm signing up to deal with so many problems. In fact, more difficult problems as I go higher and higher in level. And I get closer and closer towards my goals. So what I'm trying to tell you all is you will don't be the ones that don't expect to have problems. You will have them every day. What you're trying to do to be great is solve a lot of problems. In order to solve a lot of problems, you have to have problems, right? You have to have these problems in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Do not get frustrated when you have these problems. Do you get me? Be a little bit more prepared for what's to come. Meaning, what does it take for me to, let's say I've never hit an overhead in my life. What does it take for me to have a great overhead? Logically, now we're here in an unemotional state. We're talking very calmly. What does it take to become great with your overhead, given you've never ever practiced it or even hit one? Go ahead, Daniel.
Just you have to start practicing. Like you're gonna have to start somewhere. If you don't ever practice, you're not gonna get better. Meaning you're just gonna have to start putting reps in.
Okay, so when you start practicing, Daniel, what are you gonna face?
You're probably going to miss every overhead.
Okay, yeah. Did you hear that all? You're probably going to do nothing but miss and fail. If you want to get a great overhead, you should expect a period where you will do nothing but miss and fail. You guys, are you conceptualizing this? To be great, not only do you have to have the problems, You have to, in some ways, accept the fact that you will not be able to solve the problems for a long time before you actually can. Okay. Getting frustrated at these problems, which most people do, right? When people practice their overheads and they miss over and over and over again, are they typically unfazed or are they frustrated? I mean, I know what I was. I was frustrated, obviously, right? It's very natural to have been frustrated through that process. But we're talking about reaching your full potential today. The frustration slows the process down. Why? Because a lot of the times when you get frustrated, you may not be able to recover in a quick enough way where it doesn't leak into the next overhead. So what would be a more optimal approach to this situation? Anybody? How should you mentally approach something you're not good at or a challenge that seems beyond you? How should you mentally approach it? Go ahead, Keshav.
I feel like the way that you should think about it is like you should be prepared for the worst outcome. I feel like you said this in one of the other mental performances. You said like you want to hope for the best and like keep thinking of the future, but still be prepared for the worst outcome. So yeah.
I said you want to prepare for the worst, but believe in the best. That's what that one person in your life who believes in your best does. They believe that you can go be great at your overheads. They believe in that possibility. They believe that you can one day be great in your overhead. And expecting the worst is being prepared for the hardest, most difficult journey to get there. That's the idea of believe in the best, but expect the worst. Or expect the worst, believe in the best. So, while everybody else goes to practice as if problems shouldn't arise and as a result gets frustrated, can we in here be the few that takes the opposite approach? Breaks the tendency or the natural human instinct. Can we be the few? What would come about if we were able to be the few? Well, very rare accomplishments are accomplished by rare people. What does it mean to be the few? It means to be rare. What does it mean to be rare? It means to increase your chance of achieving rare accomplishments. To win Wimbledon, is it a common accomplishment or a rare accomplishment? It's a rare accomplishment. What does it take to achieve a rare accomplishment? To be rare. To do that which most people wouldn't do. Most people, when you watch them train and compete, get frustrated when things don't go their way. Don't be most people. Don't train like that. Don't live like that. Be the few that expects these problems and handles them with grace. Most people don't expect these problems and handle it with frustration. Which approach do you think would lead to more success? Anybody? Daniel?
I'd say just like being able to handle it like calmly. Like if you're able to handle it calmly, you're more likely to just push forward through it. Understand that failure is a part of the process instead of getting frustrated and just going on like a downward slope.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to leave 2 minutes here and obviously an extra 5 minutes at the end for any final thoughts, Q&As. And at least in these 2 minutes here, I want to encourage you to speak. Why? Does anybody want to answer why it's important to speak? Go ahead, Sam.
To be able to organize your thoughts and like learn better.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Keon.
we can also help the other people learn by sharing our ideas, and
Sure.
maybe all of us can learn from.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so 1 minute for final thoughts, questions. Anybody? How do you want to use this 1 minute? And if you don't have a question, you can use this 1 minute to organize your thoughts. But I'd encourage you all, if you truly want to reach your full potential, and we now know why you should, to use this 1 minute here. Okay, Owen?
With this idea of failing and being able to move past your with grace, my question, I guess, is this able to be used in any your world, right?
Any scenario?
School or job, or if you, you're able to use this in every.
Well, let me hear your best guess at your question.
Well, I think the obvious answer is yes. It's definitely, it would be different, I feel like, in a way that it wouldn't be the same in, like, on the tennis court where you have an open take a break, but like if you're having a test or something like that, you're not really able to during this to stop what you're doing and get angry, because then you'll run out of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great recap there. Sam? Yep. Anything? And I know, guys, you have school tomorrow and whatnot, so if you do need to leave, feel free. But I'm going to stay here for 5 more minutes for anybody who has something. Okay, Sam, go ahead.
I also think it's important not to get frustrated, because it can just leave you going down a downward spiral, and soon you won't remember what your actual goal was in the match, and you'll just be focused on your frustration.
Right. By the way, there's no homework for this week.